Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast where we share insights and trends shaping Africa's mining industry. I'm Landry Djimpe, managing partner at Ennergétique Consulting, a risk advisory and market intelligence consulting firm operating out of Paris, Abidjan, and Kinshasa. Today we have the privilege of welcoming Joachim Nzuzi. So without further ado, can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do on a daily basis?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. I am the Chief of Staff at ERG Africa. This title is pretty new in the mining industry, but basically what my role means is that I work very closely with the Africa CEO and the head of government relations at ERG Africa. And I manage external relationship with stakeholders and also relationship with government authorities. Over and above that, I look after special projects across various functions within the company, and I'm a key member of the power team, which energy actually is a very strong department for us, so I'm a key member of that particular department. Okay,
that's great. So how do you position ERG in DRC's current mining landscape?
Before I put the landscape of ERG in the DRC landscape, I think it's important that I give a global context about ERG. ERG stands for Eurasian Resources Group. It is a company that is headquartered in Luxembourg, but it is a very diversified natural resources group, and we have integrated mining, exploration, processing, logistics, infrastructure, transportation, and marketing operations. The group is present in 12 countries across 4 continents, Europe, Asia, South America, and Africa. Across the world, we have about 61,000 employees. If you count me, it will be 61,001. And so the revenue, the group's revenue, it's about, last year in 2024, we did a revenue of about $6.4 billion with an EBITDA of $1.9 billion. So ERG Africa now is the one that combines all of the assets of ERG on the African continent. The most important geography for us, obviously, is the DRC, but we have also development assets in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, and we have a refinery in Zambia. The DRC represent about 25% of the group's revenue. And we have 2 producing assets here, Metalcoal and Frontier, but we also have Comide and Boss Mining. Comide is a development asset, and Boss Mining currently is on care and maintenance. Just in terms of production, just to give you an idea about what we've just focused on copper and cobalt, obviously, in the DRC. In 2024, we produced about 139,000 tons of sellable copper and 19,000 tons of cobalt hydroxide. So that, to give you again more context, that is enough to build about 3.5 million electrical vehicles. In terms of also the partnership that we have, is very important to note that the DRC government actually is a key partner of some of our operations. At Metalcoal, the DRC, through the ministerial portfolio, they own about 10%. Frontier, they own about 5%. And at Boss Mining, through Mine, they own about 49%. So we are also a very big contributors in terms of tax revenue. Over the last 6 years, we've contributed about more than $2 billion in tax we generated tax for the country. Job creation, we have about 4,100 employees here in the DRC, 5,200 across Africa. And also we look after 58 communities which actually roughly you're looking at about 250,000 people. So that is kind of to give you a landscape about our operations. We're really among one of the major mining groups in the country. In the Chamber of Mine, where we are very active, also we are one of the largest group with the most companies involved in that. So we are very, very active in DRC. Yeah.
Wow, you said 2 billion taxes, 58 communities supported, 250,000 people impacted. So how do you go along with all of your community initiatives, such as local training, building value chains for Congolese entrepreneurs? Do these people benefit from your significant operations?
Yes, they do. So as part of our corporate social responsibilities, we do a lot, but mainly through what the mining code requires, which is through the cahier de charge agreement, and also through the 0.3% of our annual turnover. So, but the bulk of those projects, actually, we focus on education, infrastructure, water project, and energy. But one thing that is very important to note is that those projects are not projects that we choose to invest in. Those projects are selected through a very inclusive dialogue with the community, where they select the projects that are very important to them for the community. Back in the days, it was mining companies that were investing in projects that they felt were good for the communities, and there was not really, some kind of like, in French you would say retombées. But now this kind of like projects is with the community. We engage the community. There is a process that is put together, and we choose those projects together. So we definitely invest in that. Last year, 2024 alone, we paid about $84 million in terms of like royalty towards those projects. Yes.
Okay, that's great. So you talked about two of your active projects, one of them being Frontier, which today is one of the most significant producers of copper in the country. A lot of communities depend on this project being alive. So what do you do? What are your current investments to extend the life of the mine?
So with Frontier, actually, at Frontier we produce copper concentrate. Metal coal, actually, there we produce 105,000 tons that we produced last year, but we're going to talk about that probably shortly. But at Frontier, what we have done recently in terms of investments is we are ramping up and we are going through Cut 4. And basically that means that we are going to, again, extend the life of mine for another 10 years. And not only that, is that we are also exploring ways that we probably going to go underground. It's a project that the exploration team is really looking at. And that actually is even going to make Frontier, again, even more sustainable. Last year, just in terms of numbers, we produced about 39,000 tons of sellable copper at Frontier. But now with this kind of like Cut 4, we think that for 2025, we're probably going to produce about 68,000 tons for the 2025 year. Oh,
wow. Congrats to you guys. So let's talk about the second active one, metal coal, which is kind of different from Frontier. It's more around like recovering from mining waste. Maybe you should talk a little bit to us what is the difference between Frontier and metal coal's core operations. But then as well, what are the innovations you make in terms of ESG and environmental rehabilitation when you're recycling these residues?
Yeah, thanks, Landry. There's a couple of fundamental differences between the two assets. So, for example, Frontier, which is based in Sakania, the border between Zambia and DRC. As I've mentioned, we produce copper concentrate there, but that is an open pit. Metal coal, on the other hand, which is based in the Lualaba province, it's not an open pit. Actually, there we just process historical tailings from previous operators. And the beauty about metal coal, whether from an ESG perspective, is that fundamentally it is a environmental rehabilitating kind of project, whereby by treating the tailings that are there at metal coal, we're actually rehabilitating the environment. This year, we're very happy with this kind of solution that we are using. It's safer, it's cheaper, and it makes the environmental even better in terms of land clearing, water restoration, and environmental protection.
Okay, good. So today there is a huge push globally toward energy transition, which needs some very important quantity of minerals that are located significantly in the whole of the copper belt, especially copper and cobalt. Zambia and most especially DRC are one of the main suppliers of these minerals. We are seeing, because of geopolitical tensions, a huge interest in DRC in the last few months or the last few years. So does this interest from Western countries on DRC's mineral impact ERG's strategy in DRC or in the region? Because I guess you guys have operations in DRC and Zambia. So does it work? Does it influence your strategy in the region?
Well, not really. I mean, the DRC obviously remains one of the most central country when it comes to discussion, when it comes to critical mineral. We see what's going on, like you've mentioned, from a geopolitical standpoint. But people need to also understand, when they look at the history of ERG, our appetite for ERG, or other, if I can call the ERG's love for the DRC, didn't start a couple of years ago. Actually, it started as far back as 2009. So when people were looking at mining as what my former CEO used to say, people from the dark side of the moon. But ERG long ago had already understood that from a strategic standpoint, the best deposits with the highest grade were found in very complicated jurisdiction. So when people were very reluctant to come and invest into the DRC, the previous teams decided to come and invest in the DRC. And I was talking to the CEO of Metal Coal, who actually has been in the company for more than 16 years. And the one time we were having a conversation, and I told him, thank you actually for paving the way for us. There's a tag from Google Scholar that says that we are standing on the shoulders of giants. Basically, that means that we are standing based on the discovery of what other people have done. So like right now, we are benefiting from the 16-year head vision that they had as far as the potential of the DRC is. Because when you look at current investment actually in the mining sector, it's still going towards more OECD's countries, right? For example, exploration in the DRC last year was only $130 million out of the $1.3 billion into that sector. Yes, we're number one in Africa, but it's very tiny when you look at the potential of the country. When you talk to the people of the mining cadastre, CAMI, they will tell you that only 20% of the mining potential of the DRC actually is being utilized. But we currently now we have a demand for copper roughly between 30 and 32 million global annually. That's the current demand annually. But that demand is going to increase to about 50 million tons by 2050. So there has to be much more investment into that into that sector. So we're very happy for more investors to come, but it does not really change our strategy because we have a commitment, we have a long-term commitment towards the DRC, and it does not really change our strategy. What actually it does, it makes the industry actually even more stronger, because when you have more players actually who come, it raises the standards. And for example, as the Chamber of Mines, I think we're going to become stronger. And the last point I can say on this is that we are actually currently one of the few non-Chinese companies in the region. 80% of the mines are owned by Chinese. But so the current discussion really does not really affect us, and we're happy that there could be more people to come and invest in the DRC and make it more even attractive for all the people involved.
Okay. Oh, thank you for that perspective. For sure, I mean, the demand is growing, fast growing, for copper, which DRC is like the second provider worldwide. But then we have been seeing in the last months, I mean, DRC is a pair of copper, but as well tin, cobalt, gold. We are talking about lithium in a significant way, manganese. We are seeing like significant operations in DRC. But what we have been seeing as well in the last months or the last years, a number of rumors, some of them being true, some of them being false, about players wanting to exit the DRC, putting in front a number of reasons, a tough business landscape mainly, or lack of clarity in the legislative landscape. But where does ERG stand in this? Are you guys exiting? You portrayed a very promising copper market and everything,
Yeah.
a long-term commitment to the country. But I mean, where do you guys stand? Are you a long-term player in DRC?
Yeah, well, there has been rumors that ERG actually is selling, and I think it hasn't been months. This has been really going for years, and I guess that first of all, I have to say that when people are interested about the kind of assets that you have, it speaks volume about the kind of assets that we have. As I've mentioned, ERG actually, as a group, we are one of the largest holders in terms of like PEs, exploitation permits, and then PR, exploration permits. So we actually have a large portfolio of licenses. And when people actually are interested in the assets that we have, it indicates that they see value in what we have. I used to be in real estate, and I used to own a large portfolio of properties in South Africa, in Nigeria, and people will contact me to find out whether or not I was selling, especially those properties that were in prime locations. But my answer will be no. Well, we are not selling, and I think it's the same with ERG. Our group CEO refuted that claim and indicate that we are not selling, we are not exiting the DRC. It's true that when you look at the current environment, like you've mentioned, from a regulatory standpoint, it is a very tough environment. But as I've mentioned before, we are used to going to jurisdiction that people are a bit reluctant to go into. And we definitely intend to stay in that country, in this country. So those rumors, if I can tell you, are definitely not true. Up to now, they are not true. I can tell you that.
Okay, so that's crystal clear,
Yeah.
Today and for everyone. So what I'm hearing is you have a long-term plan in DRC.
Correct.
So what's your vision for the future?
Well, our vision for the future, kind of like really, if I can say, focus about 4 key pillars, which is the corporate strategy that we have. But first and foremost is we want to remain financially resilient, and that means that have a very strong balance sheet to be able to invest into future assets. We want to focus on the key assets that we have. So we want to consolidate, look at the assets that are very promising. As I've mentioned, Frontier, what we are doing with Cat 4, Metal Coal. The life of mine at Metal Coal, again, is another 12 years. How do we maximize the potential of that asset? I've mentioned about Comide, which is actually one of the most underdeveloped copper and cobalt assets. The potential are great. So that's what we want to do. We want to focus on assets that we can operate and develop right now. And those are the ones where we're going to focus. But also from a corporate governance standpoint, I think it's very important that as a company, we ask ourselves the question is, how do we become better at what we do? How do we improve the relationship with, for example, the government host the host government where we are operating. So we want to improve that, retaining the local talents that we have, promoting more, local people. So those actually, when it comes to the strategy of the group, it's where our key focus is. And obviously, last but not least, is to become more efficient and increase our production through the use of technology and really reducing our cost to become more efficient.
Okay. You talked about some of the life of mine being extended by 10 years for Frontier, Metal 12 more years. You talked about talent. So what would you have to say to a young Congolese engineer, legal, from all walks of life, who look to join ERG and help you guys deliver on what you are, to your long-term commitment to DRC, or even just joining the mining industry? What advice would you give him?
So, ERG actually, it's an adventure. I remember when I was joining the company. I'm not from the mining sector either. I used to be in consulting and then real estate investment advisory as well. But I remember at the time when I was making the interview, and I like what you've just said about, it's not just the engineers that we need, it's people from all walks of life. And I think that currently this is actually what we need. We need a broad, diverse set of skills, people from different talents, and even more women to be able to come and join the industry. So ERG is exciting. When my son asked me the question, it's hard for me to tell him what I do. So the best way I explain to him is that Daddy supplies the critical minerals that the world needs to become much more greener and safer. And then he's like, do you build electric vehicles? I'm like, yes. He said, without us, you cannot have those electrical vehicles. And all the funds that you use, those materials, those minerals come from us. So people can really be part of something that is much more bigger. I know that agriculture is the biggest employer here, but the mining sector in the DRC contributes to about 30 to 40% of the GDP. So people who join that industry will be contributing to the local economy. So for us is come, and if I can give them the advice that I was given, is really buckle up, because the ride is going to be tough. It's a very challenging environment, obviously, but it is worth the effort. It is worth the stress. People of the DRC needs to be able to benefit from the wealth of, the minerals that the country really holds. So, and if I can, so we have, our CEO, Africa CEO, Nicolas Tréant, really has a vision to really promote local talent. And that is actually really one of his passion. He really goes to kind of say, okay, how do we promote local talents? Having said that, we are not saying that the skills from foreigners are really not important, but we want to see a greater transfer of skills, and that is something that we are really promoting quite strongly internally. So come and join ERG. It's come and join the ride. It's quite interesting. That's what I can say.
That's great. Thank you, Joachim, for your time. Thank you for sharing valuable insight on ERG, but on the broader mining space in DRC. And thanks everyone for following us. Keep up for the next episode. Thanks.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.